Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another session of Cape Up, getting everybody ready to face the challenges of the day. My name is Oliver Landreth, and what I'm going to be talking to you about today and over the coming weeks and months is organizational culture. Culture is a buzzword that's making the rounds in the corporate world, but it's really quite often misunderstood. So starting next Monday, what I'm going to be doing is looking with you at what we actually mean by culture and what you can do as a leader and manager to shape the culture that your organization needs to be successful. But to get you thinking about culture, let's take a few minutes today to look at some of the myths that have been perpetuated over time. Point out, and really the idea behind these is that they are going to get your thought and creative juices flowing, get you to think about culture, what it means to you, and maybe get you to think about it in a different way. So the first one is individual behavior versus collective patterns. In reality, what really matters in an organization are the collective patterns that exist. And very often these patterns exist all the way through an organization, or you can also have a dominant pattern with sub-patterns depending on different locations, different departments, etc. And that is, again, something we'll look at in the weeks and months ahead. But the important thing here is that, if you see someone who is behaving badly or behaving well, for that matter, what you need to ask yourself is that a one-off, or is it indicative of the culture that has permeated your organization? And if you feel it's the latter, then it's important to try to understand what has brought that about, what's created it, and what can you do to make it stronger or, if necessary, weaker. The second element is this idea of nice to have. In actual fact, organizational culture is perhaps I would go so far as to say the critical component to enable your business. If your culture is supporting your business strategy, your vision, your mission, then your chance of success will be that much greater. On the other hand, if you have a culture or pockets of your culture that are working against it, then it's going to be very difficult to succeed. So it's no longer just something that you can think about and maybe get to in your next meeting. If it's on the agenda, we'll stick it at the end of the agenda. But in actual fact, you really need to put it front and center. And again, over the coming weeks and months, we're going to look at why this is and what it means to be put front and center. The other element I'd like to touch on is this idea of good and bad. We all know, or we've all heard people say, oh, that company, Google, Apple, they have an amazing culture. I really want to work there. And then you've heard other situations where people say, God, it's a horrible culture. I don't see how anybody works there. Well, the reality is that there is no such thing as a good or bad culture. There is, however, a culture that is fit for purpose. It is one, the culture that is fit for purpose is going to be one that supports your vision, your business strategy, and that enables those elements. If the culture is one that is not particularly pleasant for some individuals, that doesn't mean it's a bad culture per se. It just means that either those are not the right people to have working for you, or maybe you do need to look and see if the culture is supporting your goals or not. The critical element also is this idea of culture impacting people only. It's not really about the employee experience only. It's about every part of the business. It's about how you're structured, the kinds of titles you give your people, where your offices are, what the dress codes are, what your processes and systems are. Do they make it easier for people to work, to get their jobs done? All of that is indicative of the organizational culture that characterizes your organization. Another element that I'd like to focus on here is this idea that people have had in the past that it's really HR's job to fix the culture. Well, that's not the case. In fact, it's every leader's role to fix the culture, to understand it, to sustain it, and to set the example. HR can help with systems, with processes, with policies, but it's your role as a leader and manager to really understand what it is that you want to create and for you to set the example. Values are something that have been top of mind in many leaders' minds for years now. And the reality is that you can go through different organizations around the world, walk into their lobbies, and you'll see some version of values posted on the wall. And odds are they'll be very similar, regardless of whether the companies are in the same industry or not. And then if things aren't going as well as they should, or we would like them to, one of the gut or knee-jerk reactions leaders have is, let's define new values. Let's create a new brand, for example. Well, the reality is it's not about changing them, that's not going to make it better. What is going to make the situation better is understanding the values, understanding what they mean, understanding how they translate into behaviors, and living those values every day at every level of the organization. Then we look at this idea of culture is fixed over time. Well, we're dealing with human beings, and we all know that in our own lives, things change on a regular basis. Things evolve, things are fluid. Well, that's how it is in your organization as well. The culture that you think you have today may not be the one that you have in 5 years or 10 years. In fact, it probably won't be. So it's about understanding that it does evolve and that you need to manage how it evolves. So the more you have that under control, the more you know what you're trying to achieve, the more successful your organization is going to be, because the different components are really going to be working in a synchronized fashion. So what we're going to do over the coming weeks and months is look at case studies, look at real life situations, some from my own experience, and really give you tips and ideas on what you as a leader and manager can do to shape, develop, form, and evolve your culture over time so that you know that your business strategy is going to be that much more successful. Thank you and have a wonderful day.